Hey everyone, Sari here, and welcome back to another week of Anima Season defense matches. I didn't end up changing any of the units or skills on the team this week. They did really well the previous season, so I didn't see any reason to shake things up. I did shuffle a few of the structure placements around though. There have been a couple of matches where the team didn't handle a defense tile plonk as well as I'd like, so I'm hoping that opening up the edge a bit will help avoid those problems. I'm also considering giving Eliwood a lull instead of a lunge. While the placement disruption effect can be really useful, it hasn't had a major impact in most of my recent replays, and some clever players can actually use it to their advantage. A trace skill would be fun for him too, especially with the resets that Gale Force can give him, but those are a little bit harder to find at the moment. The defense held up really well again this week, securing an essentially flawless set of defenses. While there was one failure, securing 3 knockouts in that match would be enough to prevent lift loss even without Mirabilis' bonus week, and I don't think they would have kept that match if they'd had a ladder left to use. So let's get to the first match. This match was a fun way to start the week. It's been a while since I've seen a plus 10 Winter Altina, and, well, she's still pretty impressive. I also brought along a plus 10 Marianne. I kind of wonder if this is more of an arena build than an AR one, since it's pretty rare to see a Rally Plus skill in an AR offense team. Usually the movement skills are just a lot more generally useful, unless you're using a ruse of some sort. The triple mythics boost their stats to a really solid state, and even though using a bonus week Alphonse is a bit of an oof moment, they still have a pretty impressive team to work with. They get things set up to start on the first turn, which is a bit of a bold approach. And it starts to fall apart pretty quickly once Eliwood rallies forward and gets danced. Altina ends up being a very good first target for him. It gets him a Gale Force and also lets him panic the entire enemy team, which lets him get a very easy follow-up knockout on Reagan. Helix, as usual, doesn't really have any problems taking down Altina. And then he can get danced forward and bring down Alphonse as well. And with only 2 units left on their team, that's enough for them to surrender and move on. This match was another fun one to see, and they brought along a fallen Edelgard with her kind of standard Mystic Boost set, along with a legendary Crom and Leaf, who are both in their in-season for this week, and a bonus week Zeke. Well, they're only using 2 mythics here. Having all 4 of these units together gives them a lot of options for approaching an enemy team. Edelgard's a great frontliner and potential Gale Forcer, and Leaf is an excellent Gale Forcer and can vantage sweep through a lot of things if he places correctly. While Crom is just always a menace, and having to change Fate's mobility is a great way to navigate the map. They might not have wanted to start it like this though, since without her transformation active, Edelgard doesn't have distant counter or damage reduction, and Felix can just jump forward to bring her down in one combat. And Eliwood's rally forward lets him get access to Plumeria, which secures us 2 early knockouts. rest of the team can't catch up, and they decide to keep fighting things out. Crom can't quite pick Eliwood off in one combat, but it's easy enough for Reagan to finish him off. And from there they pull back to try and stay out of range of the team for the next turn. Unfortunately, the orders buffs and the dances mean that Rajat gets all the way forward and one-shots Zeke. They keep going though, and Reagan doesn't have any problems taking Rajat down now that she's out of range of Edelgards' safe range. And they pull her all the way back and, once again, try to retreat out of range. They do bait Dorothea successfully with Crom. But they can't quite get anyone else here. On the other hand, Crom's fully charged special means that he can actually bring Ceres down in one hit here. And Mirabilis being off on the side like this makes her a pretty easy target for Leaf as well. They are down to just the two arms at this point, but Felix and Edelgard, especially when they stick together, aren't so easy to crack. Without her special active on the first hit, Reagan really can't do much damage to Edelgard. While Edelgard has no problems taking her down. They have Leaf attack into Felix here, and I think this was deliberate. Since without that extra damage, even though Leaf ends up dying for it, Crom wouldn't actually be able to kill Felix. Unfortunately, at this point, Edelgard is just able to walk up to Crom and bonk him on the head, and that brings the match to an end. This was another fun one to see. Mostly just because it's pretty rare to see a team bring along 4 different units that are all in their bonus weeks at the same time. It's really interesting, and all those extra stats can really tip the scales in your favor on an offense. And rounding the team out with a fallen Edelgard is, well, a great way to help boost the team. This team does actually have a lot of flexibility with their approaches. There are a lot of hit and run options thanks to having 2 different Canto effects with Paula and Reagan. And they've got a full set of color approaches to crack open basically any unit. I think they might have been hoping that Luthier would be able to take out Felix here, but he can't quite manage it, so they decide to just use Edelgard to plonk instead. Unfortunately, Eliwood gets to rally forward and pick up an easy knockout on Luthier. The guard effect stops him from gale forcing, but Rajat gets to jump forward and sweep Edelgard, which makes her a very easy target for Ceres. And there, Rajat gets danced for a second easy knockout on Reagan. That effective damage against cavalry was really coming in useful this week. And Felix can jump forward and snipe Paula. do decide to keep going here. Fernand can take down Eliwood, without too many issues. And they just have Asher back up to bait Rajat. The bait works. Rajat gets herself knocked out pretty easily here. But it does still apply the flash effect. And, well, Dorothea ends up getting baited into attacking, unfortunately. But an order's effect lets Felix jump in and finish her off. From here, Fernand really doesn't have any options. Anything he attacks would let him attack Edelgard instead. And while Dorothea gets baited forward again, it's not like Fernand can actually counterattack her. And then Ceres gets danced forward and can finish him off. This match made the third fall in Edelgard in a row that we got to see on a defense replay. She's certainly popular this week. And their maxed out Brunio was really impressive to see too. I think this might be a bit more of an arena build than an AR one. The threaten doesn't make too much sense on an offense team. But this maxed out Minerva is pretty neat too. The three of them together, I think, offer them a lot of ways to approach a defense. There's a lot of bulk between them, and honestly, Edelgard and Brunja are probably enough to tear their way through a lot of things with Minerva in the back just to help pick off anything problematic. They take a turn to set up here, letting Edelgard transform while they get ready to start the fight. The Harsh Command and Rally are a neat way to help bolster Edelgard's stats, but moving her into the Panic Miner's range negates a lot of those benefits. Eliwood gets danced forward, but he can't actually outspeed this Minerva. And thanks to her card effect, she doesn't actually let him Gale Force either. Unfortunately, getting lunged forward puts her into Felix's range, and he can finish her off. They decide to keep going here. You can finish Eliwood off without any problems. And they decide to risk the pretty obviously fake bolt trap to give Edelgard a charged up bonfire that lets her one-shot Ceres. And then they back all of their mythics up, try and avoid anything else. Rajat, though, is not particularly impressed by an Edelgard, and has a very easy time disabling her attacks, which lets our Edelgard move in and finish her off. Edelgard gets danced next, and, well, at that point is in easy range of Brunja, and can secure another knockout. And with all three of those down, it's enough for them to surrender the match and move on. This match was really interesting to see just because it's been quite a while since I've seen a maxed out fallen female Corrin. She's really impressive, and while I don't think her weapon has aged as well as some, since it's really just a ball of stats. With the right support, she can still really take enemy teams apart. And, well, backing her up with a maxed out Fjorm like that is a great way to help isolate any targets that might usually think they're safe from a Fjorm's HP threshold. The two +10 Nagas, though, are a bit of an eyebrow raiser. I've never personally liked merging multiples of the same mythic up because I think it's mostly a waste in the end. But they might have done it early on when she was the only mythic available. They try to activate this map by isolating Mirabilis and baiting things out without anything going wrong. And they're partially successful. They do get Eliwood to rally forward, but at this point the map isn't actually active yet. And I think they only figured that out after this second turn, which ends up costing them a couple of turns of moving around. They decide to just plunk Corrin on the defense tile and hope for the best. But unfortunately, she doesn't have enough speed to actually prevent Eliwood from just surviving her. And once all of her buffs are panicked, Rashot can actually make a very safe attack as well. And once Rashot attacks and disables her ability to counter, she's really just a sitting duck at this point. Rashot takes her down to 3 hit points, and Felix can jump over to finish her off. The rest of the team can't get in range, thanks to the isolation. And they have Fjorm finish Rashot off, I think mostly as revenge. They flip Naga forward for a knockout on Saros as well. But at that point they decide to surrender and move on. This one was another fun match to watch. They brought along a maxed out Hana, which isn't something I've actually seen a whole lot of in Aether raids. This does feel a bit like her arena build with double rally, but they're backing her up with a Fallen Edelgard and a Winter Sothis, and bonus weak Zeke. Combining Fallen Edelgard with Winter Sothis is actually a really neat idea, since it lets Sothis carry a march and fully enable Fallen Edelgard even on the first turn, with the movement buff and her transformation. And they take advantage of that here, flipping Edelgard forward to start putting a dent in our Edelgard. The bonfire's not quite enough to finish Edelgard off, but it is enough to significantly damage her, and since she isn't in range of the healing tower, she's not able to recover that very easily. As usual though, Rashot's quite happy to sweep Edelgard and disable her healing, which lets Eliwood move in and panic all of her buffs. The lunge does backfire here though, since it pulls Edelgard into an actually safer position and away from Saros, who'd be able to finish her off at this point. Felix jumps forward and just barely misses the knockout on Sothis. And Dorothea gets baited into attacking and drops Edelgard to 8 hit points. We don't actually get any knockouts here, but both of their armored units are pretty crippled. since even though Sothis can finish off Felix here, she can't actually heal. And Fallen Edelgard can finally finish off our Edelgard, but at the same time her entire kit's offline, so she doesn't even get to attack a second time here, or heal thanks to Fatal Smoke. And that leaves both of them extremely vulnerable on the following turn. Eliwood can finish this off without any problems, and then Mirabilis can dance him forward to take down Plumeria. That second knockout is enough for him to Gale Force, and he has just enough damage to one-shot Regan. Theros finally gets to move up and take down Edelgard. And the team can't really catch up from there. They do decide to keep going with this, and Zeke can finish Eliwood off. I think they might have been hoping that Hana would be able to finish things off from here, but after Rashot just one-shots Zeke, it gets a little tricky. Rashot does end up in a pretty vulnerable spot for this turn though, and Hana can move in to take her down. But at this point she's on her own, and Seros, after getting that one attack on Edelgard, can iceberg her down. And that closes the match out. This one was another neat match to see. They brought along a Brave Claude, who I don't see too much of. I think he's actually a pretty solid carry, if you can find the right teams to use him against. And combining him with Hinoka is actually a really great way to double down on rain effects and make it a lot harder to bring Claude down. It's a neat approach, and I do think this actually does well against a lot of teams, although Claude can struggle a bit with automatic follow-ups and guard effects. They decide to try and move in on the first turn to snipe our catapult and preserve their bolt tower. And they do a decent enough job of retreating, but once Eliwood rallies forward, things get out of hand pretty quickly. Altina can actually get some damage done this time to Eliwood, but it's not enough to finish him off, and he gets a pretty easy Gale Force out of that, which exposes Hinoka for an easy second knockout. Claude himself ends up going toe-to-toe with Felix, and even though he's carrying an Iotes, it's not enough to keep him alive through that. The rest of the team can't get in range, but losing those three is enough for them to surrender and move on. This match was very interesting to see. They brought along a +8 Fallen Edelgard. It was very impressive and very bulky at that point, along with a +10 Legendary Eliwood, who can give her +12 attack and defense from anywhere on the map, a +10 Regan, who's very good at hitting and picking off a single target easily, +10 bonus weak Ashura, a +10 Plumeria, and rounding things off with a +10 Naga. It's a very highly invested team across the board, and having Eliwood to give a panic immune fallen Edelgard bonus doubler is a great way to help her just massacre basically any opponent's team. They take a turn to set up here, and then they flip Edelgard forward and have her stand on the defense tile to get things started. I think they wanted to use the Bolt Tower turn on the following turn, just to help clean things up afterwards. As usual though, her shot starts things off and can sweep Edelgard pretty easily, which turns off her healing and counterattacks. Eliwood tries to do his part and panics her. It doesn't get anything done, since, well, Asher is cancelling that out, so she gets to keep the bonus doubler through this entire enemy phase. And that means that she weathers all of this pretty easily. Bolt Tower comes through, and it's easy enough for Edelgard to take her shot out before she becomes an actual problem, before moving on to attack into our Edelgard. The only problem at this point is that because she's using Gale Force, she can't actually do very much damage to Edelgard per hit. And since our Edelgard is also running Mystic Boost, she ends up coming out of that with most of her health. And this turn, Edelgard isn't actually protected from panic effects, so Eliwood actually gets to make her a lot more vulnerable, even though he doesn't get too much done on his own. Cerus finally gets to warp forward and get some real damage done. Even though the Mystic Boost and post-combat healing helps her sustain through most of that. Eliwood takes one more swing and doesn't quite get finished off. But really, at this point, Edelgard's weathered most of the storm, and she's going to survive this. Even though Felix does get to do quite a chunk of damage to her with that bonfire. I think at this point they were wanting to start actually carving through the team instead of just watching Edelgards fight each other in the player phase. Since their fallen Edelgard really isn't making much headway against our brave version. I think after these 3 combats they may have forgotten that they already used Kanto. And while Reagan can finish Edelgard off, she can't escape anymore. And, well, Cerus is more than happy to attack a softer target than their fallen Edelgard. Picks up an easy knockout on Reagan, before getting danced, rallied, and getting a second one on Plumeria. And then Eliwood gets danced, and unfortunately from here we can't pick anything else up. Felix doesn't even have anyone in range to enable Unity anymore, or his weapon. And Eliwood doesn't quite have enough health to be able to chop through theirs. But losing those 2 is enough for them to concede the match and move on. This match was the failure of the week, and they brought along a really impressive Reinhardt as the star of their show. It's about as high attack as you can give him in a single kit. It's really neat to see. I haven't seen him very much on an offense team. And they're backing him up with a Lynja, and a Reagan, and an Olivia. just to have a dancer in there for the hit and run approach. I think this team's actually very solid. It's got multiple ways to attack into any enemy tanks with Lynja and Reinhardt, and between the two of them I think it's pretty easy to break through a tank, especially if their bolt tower doesn't get sniped. They take a couple of turns to move into position while they wait for that bolt tower turn. And with that extra damage, Reinhardt can take down Felix. And with Felix sniped, they retreat as far as they can, and let the team come to them. Unfortunately, Eliwood's rally does mean that he gets Reinhardt pulled forward. And while he can't actually kill Reinhardt himself, he still gets to Gale Force. And Alphonse is a much easier target to break. After that, Rajat gets danced and can warp forward to blow Reinhardt out of the water. They keep pushing forward here, and especially when they don't have an escape ladder left, I can't blame them for it. Lynn can take down Eliwood without any problems, while Reagan can move in and take down Rajat. And after that, they retreat out of range again. Cirrus gets danced, though, and I actually expected her to take the hit on Olivia, but Edelgard warps forward to do that instead. We can't actually reach anything from here, unfortunately, which means that it's actually pretty easy for them to clean things up from here. The Moonbow lets Lynn take down Ceros, and then they can flip Naga over to take down Dorothea, which lets Lynn get her duo skill active. And pull Naga out of harm's way. Mirabilis can't quite catch up to Edelgard here, so it's easy enough for them to start taking her down. Even though Edelgard does survive Lynn, she can't actually counter her, and Reagan can move in to finish the job. And then once that's done, they can pull back one more time and finish Mirabilis off with Lynn. I'm not too worried about this loss. I don't think they would have kept it if they had a ladder left to use. This one kind of hurt to see on the heels of the last one. I don't like seeing people hit this defense without a ladder to fall back on, and well, I guess they can run into me anyway. They brought along a neat little combination of Brave Claude backed up by Didu for a near save tank, and I think that actually helps Claude out a lot, since it lets him focus on the ranged combat and means he can run something better than close counter in his A slot. They decide to get things started right away and move Claude up. Without their bolt tower, it's not likely that they'll be able to hit and run with this. But unfortunately, Eliwood rallies forward, and Felix handles Claude pretty easily. They do keep going here. Bracken can take Eliwood down. And they try to have Paula move in and snipe Rashad. But Edelgard gets in the way, and survives Paula fairly easily, and they surrender from there. This was a fun match to close out the week with. They brought along a very heavily supported Lynja, and they actually did get to snipe our Q's Hindrance with their catapult, which fully enables all three of their duo units. And, well, when all three dancers are carrying multiple sources of drive attacks, this Lyn can actually get up to 35 extra in-combat attack in the right situations. And that's enough for her to break through just about any tank that the defense team might try to use. On the other hand, we do get to snipe their bolt tower. And that ends up being pretty important, since while they can set this up to give Lynja a full spectrum of bonuses, and start things off by sniping Eliwood, without some extra chip damage on Felix, even all of that attack isn't quite enough to let Lyn finish him off, and they just surrender at that point. Overall, it was another really solid week of defenses for the team. I was a bit worried going into the week, since a Bolt Tower bonus week can really punch a hole in the setup, but things worked out anyway. It's good to see them doing this well, and I'm hoping they can keep it up in the coming weeks. I do have a Discord link in the description if you'd like to hang out and chat, and there's also a Patreon page if you'd like to help support the channel. As always, I hope you've enjoyed the video, good luck with your own matches, and I'll see you next time.